Hi, everybody. My name is Jessica Morrison, and I'm here with the Indigenous Business Development Services Program in partnership with Sage Hill Community Futures. We do have a very large group who have registered for this session today, but at this point, we only have 3 people on. Just for the sake of time, we are recording, and I think we'll just get started. And then as new people enter the room, I'll just let them in and then send everybody the recording later if they've missed anything. Before we get started, I just want to read a land acknowledgement. So as we gather here today, we acknowledge that we are on Treaty 6 territory and homeland of the Métis. We pay our respects to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of this place and reaffirm our relationship with one another. So today we are here with Heather Morrison, and Heather is the owner of Deliver Your Best. I was fortunate enough to take a public speaking course with Heather quite a while ago now, over a year ago for sure. And so I'm going to let Heather introduce herself because, well, she's the professional speaker and not me. And so, and we have, if you have questions, I mean, you're welcome to type them in the chat. And Heather has also saved some room at the end for you to engage. So welcome, Heather.
Hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And for our friends that are joining us live, I just want to invite you, if you feel comfortable, I would love for you to turn your video on because I'll pull up a PowerPoint here in just a second, but I also teach in gallery view and I love to see the people that I'm connecting with and the people that I'm teaching because then I can tell if I'm being understood. So I'll actually jump back and forth between, hello, great to meet you. I'll actually jump back and forth between PowerPoint and gallery view just so I can get some just visual feedback on how I'm doing and if I'm being understood. And Jessica, if you don't mind, like just as people come in, you could just like pop them a note saying like, if you feel comfortable, please turn your video on. So I will now just pop into my PowerPoint and typically, oh, hang on one second here. So typically when I start a presentation, I also do a land acknowledgement. I won't do this one again because you just did such a nice job there. But one of the, I would say, really lovely parts about my job is that I get to work with people from all over the world. And so when I start any program or class, I always do a land acknowledgement and then I get to talk about why I believe that they are important and why we do them here in Canada, which is that we are all treaty people. And there was these agreements that these agreements that we agreed to live by here as settlers and Indigenous people, and that we are all treaty people. And that's important for us to always remember. And then I show them these pictures here of my hometown of Saskatoon. And I always say, but unfortunately, it looks like photo number 2 most of the time, but it is a beautiful city. So today we're going to be talking about public speaking. And I really try to hone it in on what would be beneficial for people that work, especially in entrepreneurship. So people that are really, go-getters, professionals on the rise who have to talk about their business a lot. So the key takeaways that we're going to be working with here today, the stuff that's going to benefit you the most is really about how you can become a confident speaker. So that includes me teaching you about the foundations of good public speaking and the mindset that a great public speaker has as well. And then we're going to talk about preparation, how we get ready to public speak, and things that are going to serve us so that we can manage anything that comes our way, and then techniques for working with audiences as well. And then finally, what we're going to end on is something that Jessica mentioned to me is really important, which is how to talk about your business. So, when we have that 1 minute and we're going to be able to get somebody's attention, what are we going to say? And how do we say it in the best way possible to make an impression? And then also my process for writing and memorizing an impactful speech. So my name's Heather and I am a public speaking coach. So I am an entrepreneur as well. I run a business here in Saskatchewan and Saskatoon on Treaty 6. And what I mainly do is I coach public speaking. I help people become confident and authentic speakers. And how I came to this was that I personally was not a good public speaker to start. I was someone who was very afraid of the process. I would dread it. I wouldn't be able to sleep the night before, or if I knew I had to do it later in the day, it would hang over my head and I wouldn't be able to concentrate at work. And then afterwards, I would always feel so awful. Like, what did I even say? That wasn't me. I don't feel like I was present the whole time. And eventually, because I worked in media and because I had to be up in front of people one day a week, live audiences looking at me and me feeling all these awful things, I just decided this cannot go on. I'm losing a day a week every single week of my life to all these nerves and all this dread. And so I got to work figuring it out. I didn't find that the resources for getting over fear of public speaking were very helpful at the time. A lot of them had to do with like the external stuff. So just stand like this and put your hands on your hips and make direct eye contact, and then all your problems will go away. Well, that did not make my problems go away. It made my problems worse. So what I had to do was actually turn to other things like cognitive behavioral therapy, self-help books, and look around and find how to resolve my internal issues so that I could feel as if I was becoming a confident and authentic speaker, which is eventually what happened. And now when I public speak, I feel really calm and I feel really relaxed. And I enjoy it as well. I enjoy being able to be useful to the world. So all that said is that I took all of that, I packaged it up, and now I teach it to people. And now I help other people go along that same journey. Because when I hear people say that they dread public speaking or it brings them nerves, my instincts is just to grab them and be like, it doesn't have to. It's just a skill that you can develop. And so that is my mission in the world, is to help take away this problem for other people. So I want to talk a little bit then about how we're going to do that. And the first thing that we are going to start with is really the foundations of public speaking. So the first thing to know is that your fear, if you do fear public speaking, if it gives you that like nervousness or that feeling in your stomach, is that it's completely normal, it's completely natural, and it's incredibly common. You know, it's the number one fear in the United States. People fear public speaking more than they fear dying. Jerry Seinfeld has this joke that at a funeral, people would rather be in the casket than do the eulogy. So you have great company, you have most of the world on your side if you are afraid of public speaking. So the fear is really common. And to me, I think this is actually an evolutionary bias that we developed as human beings. So belonging has always been important to us as a species. And so when we put ourselves out there and we speak up, it's possible that we could put that sense of belonging at risk. So our initial fear reaction makes sense to me. What happens to certain people is that that initial fear reaction causes something that goes dreadfully wrong. And this is when people end up needing my help. So what happens is that people have that initial fear reaction. And then for some people, what happens is that they get up to speak, they feel the fear, and then being exposed to their anxiety makes them realize, oh, hey, okay, no problem. Like that wasn't bad at all. Like nobody was mad at me. And I guess public speaking is fine. And they develop a healthy relationship with public speaking. For a lot of other people, it doesn't go like that. So they have that initial fear response, their sympathetic nervous system kicks in, and it causes all these other problems. So they start sweating, their voice shakes, their heart's racing, they might turn red and they feel like it's embarrassing. And they have all this stuff go on. And when they're done public speaking, they go, that was horrible. I never want to do that again. I'm obviously really bad at this. And so being exposed to that anxiety is a negative experience. And then people get stuck, right? So then next time, it's not just that initial fear reaction. We worry about our response to that fear reaction and we start snowballing. So it's like, we're not just afraid of like what might happen to us. We're also afraid that we're going to get red in the face or we're going to be sweating and our voice is going to shake. And we don't want that to happen. And then it does happen. And that makes us feel even worse. And people just go on, or they just give up completely. A lot of people come to me because they just completely avoid public speaking. They won't even try to do it at all. I had a woman who said that she hid in a closet until everybody went into the room where she was supposed to do a presentation. And then she snuck out the back door and her coworker had to deal with this situation. So this is where I say people fear the fear itself. So what is going on for people that is causing this, but also allows us to resolve this? And in my opinion, there are two things that are happening in our brains that are causing many of our issues with public speaking. And once we start coming from this place and working on those issues, we can become a much better public speaker. So this brain here, I would like you to know this is a diagram I created in Canva. So if you want to talk about being nervous public speaking, I actually did this presentation. Like I had a neuroscientist in one of my in one of my classes, and I was like, now I'm going to teach you about the brain. But as we see here, this lower part, this amygdala, like that was created, that was like our initial brain piece that we had when we were developing as a human species. And this is going to be in charge of all our, instinctual response for keeping us safe. And then this prefrontal cortex is in charge of everything that is what we need to operate in society today, essentially. So this is creative thinking and be able to manage our emotions and conflict. And it is very important for things like public speaking. But what happens when we're public speaking and we get that initial fear response is that the amygdala, that first part, grabs onto our prefrontal cortex and won't let it go. Like it hijacks it, it freezes it. And then all of a sudden, we're not as articulate as we were. Or we might even go even farther. We might have a full-on panic attack, because our body is registering public speaking as a threat. And so it's having a nervous system response. Now, the one thing I do want to say about this is actually your nervous system functioning as it should. If you think public speaking is a threat, then your body should warn you off of it, because your body's trying to maintain status quo. It's going, hey, I like my job. I like how much food I have to eat. I love the place I have to sleep. Why should we put this at risk? So it is operating normally. The problem is not how your body's functioning. It's how we're thinking about public speaking. And I'll get to that in a second. The other thing is that I want to show you is where I have that little swoop arrow that says working memory. So our working memory is this part, it's multiple parts in our brain working together, but it is essentially our attention. So when we are speaking as public speakers, all our attention should be on what we're talking about. But our working memory can only hold so much information at once. So if you have a thought or anything else comes into your mind that isn't what you're speaking about, it is going to interrupt your ability to communicate because it's such a small space. So in order to have another thought, it's got to push the old thought out. Let me demonstrate this for you. Okay, so here's my talk. My talk is this pen. And this wet whiteboard marker is going to be like anything that's not relevant to my talk. So right now I'm talking about public speaking and I'm thinking about public speaking. And then I think something like, I wonder if these people have heard this before and I'm being boring. And then I'm like, wait a second, that isn't what I'm supposed to be thinking about. So I got to push that thought out of my working memory and then get the thought about my talk back in. And then I think, oh my gosh, I'm sweating a little bit in my blazer. Can people see it? And then I have to push that thought out. Or sometimes people get so messed up that it is like the thoughts that they don't want to have are just locked in here. It's, oh, this is going horribly. I knew it was going to go horribly. And now I don't feel good. And now my stomach's shaking. And I wonder if they can see the fact that I'm sweating. And like the thoughts about your talk are like trying to get in, but they can't because your working memory is so occupied with all these other thoughts. So a lot of the work that we have to do as public speakers is actually just gain control of our attention. Because when we don't have it, that's when we have the experiences of, I'm really good one-on-one, but when I'm in front of a group, I can't think of what to say. I don't even remember what I said. I was just talking and words were coming out, but I wasn't writing any memories, or I felt really distracted, or I didn't feel like myself, or I never connect with my audiences. Because unless what you're thinking about is what you're talking about, you cannot emotionally connect to the people you're talking to. So that is the work of becoming a really good public speaker, is working with the brain to resolve those two issues, calming down that nervous system and regaining our focus and our attention so that when we get in front of people, the only thing we're thinking about is what we're talking about. And that is my job as a coach, is to get you to that place where you can do that. So what I like to say about public speaking is that it is simply an expression of who you are on that day. So often when we see public speakers, we think of them as someone who's rising to the occasion, someone who's got this talent, and then they just stand up and all this amazing speaking comes out of them, and they're so connected to what they're saying and they're so passionate. And that is something that we could never do. But the truth is that what we are seeing when we are seeing a great public speaker is we are seeing someone who is put in the work to be able to be calm, to be able to be thinking about what they're talking about. And so they can go up and they can just be themselves in front of a crowd. And their experience and their willingness to work on this skill is what has gotten them there. So when I say it's just an expression of who you are in that day, is that we have, first of all, we've developed the skill so that we're much better at it. And then we got every single thing out of the way so that we can just show up and be ourselves. So that is the number one thing that we all need to know about public speaking, is that is how great speakers work. That is how speakers come across as confident and authentic, is that they are being themselves. So let's get into a little bit of how we do that. And a lot of it is going to be coming from our mind. So a lot of it is going to be on our mindset and how we view public speaking. So a couple really big tools, and I'm going to go through different variations of them here for you. This is a great place to take notes, but I will say I will be sending on, like, you'll all receive the PowerPoint from this. So this is going to be a great resource for you as well. I'll send a PDF of it over when I'm done this talk. So how we think about public speaking impacts our performance of it. So when I was talking about, the nervous system, and I was saying, like, we ramp it up. If you think of public speaking as an unsafe thing for you, then you are going to be scaring yourself even more, and you're going to be creating more of those thoughts and that nervous system reaction. The other part of it is also self-compassion and making sure that we talk and speak kindly to ourselves in order to free up the working memory, and then examining all the different ways we think about public speaking and we think about ourselves and changing them. And so one of the ways that we do that is through what's called reframing, which is a cognitive behavioral therapy tool or a skill that's taught in cognitive behavioral therapy. And what it is really taking the same situation and then choosing to just look at it in a different way that will serve us better, and then we'll get better results for us. So we'll talk about that in this little unit here on mindset. Okay, so the number one thing that we need to do when it comes to public speaking and becoming a better public speaker is changing our relationship with our nerves. So if you are someone who gets nervous as a public speaker, that's great. And that's totally fine. And it's totally normal. And what I want you to do is start working on accepting that for you, nerves are just part of the process, and they're just going to be there. I find that a lot of people who get nervous think that that means something's wrong with them, or that's a sign that they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. And truthfully, it's the complete opposite. Nerves show that you care. Nerves show that there is something at stake here for you. And so you are worried that either you won't get what you want or it's not going to go well. And that's great, because you know what? If you don't care, you shouldn't be up in front of the crowd talking about these things. We should all be operating in arenas where there's something on the line for us, where we have a little bit of skin in the game. So the other thing about nerves that I think is absolutely beautiful is that they give us energy. Because we care and because our body's going, "Whoa, this is a big deal," we are getting way more energy from our body than if we didn't care at all. I used to help a woman with media training. She was doing a book tour, and I would look at all her interviews that she'd do on television. And it was hilarious to me because she would do these morning show interviews, and the host would be like, "Hello, this is so-and-so here to talk about her book." And then she would come out and she'd go, "Hi, I'm here. I'm so excited." Because that host was someone who didn't care. That host was someone who'd been getting up at 3 a.m. for 5 years, and they were over it. And she was someone who cared a lot. And you could see how that was energizing her at 6 a.m. for this interview. Nerves are a great thing as long as they don't trip us up. So let me give you one of the greatest tools that I have ever come across in order for dealing with our nerves. So like the biggest thing to know about this is the fact that nerves persist. So if you do not pay attention to them, if you do not allow them to, they're going to get bigger and bigger. The way I think about it is if so say uh s- here, let me pop out a screen share to do the story. Okay, so say you were walking by my house and you saw that my kitchen was on fire. What would you do? Like you would probably come up and you knock on the door or something, right? Like you got to let me know my kitchen is on fire. You can see me. I'm in the living room. I don't know this. So you knock on the door. And then if I don't answer, what else would you do? You'd start banging. You start knocking louder. You start ringing the doorbell, start kicking the door. You might even try to break the door down. You got to get me out. You got to save my life, right? You go as big as possible. That is your nerves. If you are not paying attention to them, they have to get your attention and let you know that you're not safe. Now imagine you're walking by my house, you see that my kitchen's on fire, you knock on the door, I answer. You say, your kitchen's on fire. And I say, oh no, that's just a hologram. We're doing this fun thing for Halloween. We're trying to get it organized. What would you do? You'd walk away, and you'd be calm. And so that's what we have to do with our nerves is we have to say, hey, I see that you're freaking out. I see the message you're trying to get me. And I just want to let you know that there's some information here that you don't have. Okay? That public speaking is safe and I am completely safe right now. And so the process for this, or the best way that I use to remember this when I'm in those moments of high intensity right before I go on, is the RAIN technique. And this is a Buddhist technique. And the version that I love the best here is from Tara Brach, who's a meditation teacher and author. You might have read her book, Radical Acceptance. And it's a 4-step process, which is RAIN, which is recognize what you're feeling. So, whoo, I'm feeling some nerves. My chest is turning red. I can feel the sweat coming and my thoughts are racing. Okay. Allow or accept it. I allow this. This is what I'm feeling. I have nerves. They are part of me right now and I feel them. And then investigate. So why am I feeling this way? Oh, because I would love to nail this job interview. If I can get this job, I know that my life's going to improve and I'm scared that I'm not going to get it. And then we nourish and we take care of ourselves, which is, oh, that makes complete sense. Well, I'll just let you know that we still have a really good job. And once we go through this process and we go through this interview, if we don't get this job, that's okay. We're still on a success trajectory. We're still going to have more opportunities. And you give yourself that warm, nourishing encouragement and also that reassurance that not your survival isn't based on this one event. And, this really is that moment where you say, oh, it's just a hologram, right? Okay, so another great tool for you to use, and I would encourage you to write this one down to keep it accessible for you, is thought analysis. So this is where we can examine what we're thinking about public speaking and we can change it to us for us to serve ourselves. So it's a 3-part system. So thought analysis starts with, what am I thinking about X? So what am I thinking about public speaking or being a public speaker? Oh, it's terrible. I'm bad at it. I'll never be good at it. It's never going to be something for me. Okay, well, if you think that way, what's that thought? What is that thought going to create for you? Well, for me, that thought creates really negative feelings in my body. I lack motivation. I feel down about myself. I don't feel good about myself. I'm not going to raise my hand for opportunities. Can I change that thought? And this is that reframe piece we were talking about, is what would I like to think about this? How would I like to think about myself as a public speaker? And a great reframe when you think I'm bad at public speaking is just, I lack experience, or I don't have the skill or the tools that I need right now to get better. So I'm going to find those tools and I can improve. And when you work your way through that process, what you'll feel is a change within yourself. You'll feel an emotional change that's going to motivate you for the action. The other big thing that I find that's a helpful reframe for public speaking is making sure that we think about it as a challenge and not a threat. So just like that fire analogy, is that with public speaking, we have to make sure that we know that we are safe, that we know that this is 2024. And if we speak out against a group and it doesn't go well, if we say something and we make a mistake or we kind of blow it or it's kind of mundane, you still get to eat the catered lunch, right? Like you are not going to lose your job and you're not going to completely fall apart. You're going to have the things that you had before. What this is that this is an opportunity for growth or gain. So this is the chance for us to improve our lives by stepping up and speaking in front of people. And when we prepare our body and when we prepare our stress response for a challenge as opposed to a threat, it's a completely different response. And one of them is that the fact that you're going to actually have a lot of access to your prefrontal cortex. You're going to have the ability to think critically, and you're going to have the ability to just be much more confident, articulate, and authentic as you're doing it. One of the hugest things that people deal with when it comes to public speaking is imposter syndrome. So, one of the best ways that I have found to manage this one is thinking about confidence as not something we necessarily need to have as public speakers. And I'll explain this a little bit more. So, I don't think that confidence is something that we have or we don't. I think confidence is a spectrum, and we move along that spectrum throughout our day, month, and throughout our lives. So at one end, we have extreme self-doubt. At the other end, we have Beyonce, and we're always just somewhere in between. Though I will be honest, I never get to Beyonce level. So what this helps me with is when I think about those moments of self-doubt where I don't really feel confident within myself, is that that is just a moment in time. When I have a really great moment and things go really well for myself and I'm feeling very confident, I don't think I've ever once been like, yes, this is me. This is who I truly am. I go, oh, that kind of felt nice. And then I go back to somewhere in the middle, which is where I normally am. But if I have a moment of extreme self-doubt of I really messed that up or don't think I know what I'm doing here, for some reason, I take that moment on as my identity, as I am an imposter and I don't belong here. And that piece right there, that identification is the problem. So we talked about the Buddhist technique, rain, but the Buddhists also have a really great, something else that they really base a lot of their work on, which is non-identification. So not taking one moment or one thing and making it our identity. So next time you experience self-doubt, if you can focus on it as, oh, this is just a moment, I'm just here on the spectrum, I'll return and I'll move around, it helps it pass through you. And then the other thing that it does is it allows you to also look for information that's helpful. So if you think about it, like, so a woman gets a promotion, right? And she's now an executive, she's running a meeting and it doesn't go well. And she can come out of that meeting and she can say to herself, oh, that didn't go well. I'm such an imposter. I don't belong here. I shouldn't have got this promotion. Or she can come out of that meeting and say, oh, that didn't go well. I wonder if I can find more information on how to run meetings better. Because she's allowing herself to look at it as a moment as opposed to an identity. I also don't really think that how we feel about ourselves in the moment before we step on stage matters for our performance. And how I got myself around this is I stopped thinking about confidence as being necessary, but rather capability. And capability is how I ground myself before I take on a task or I get in front of a group of people. So capability. So I always say, like, confidence is a slippery fish. So you try to grab it, you try to feel confident, you try to get it, you're not going to be able to get it. Capability, rather, is something that you can find through asking yourself a series of questions. So when I am asked to do something new, I take myself through this 3-part process, which is, do I have experience in this area? Do I have the tools and knowledge that I need? And if not, do I know where to get them? And then finally, do I have the time and the desire to put in the work needed? And if the answer to the question is all yes, then I am capable of this task. And then I don't have to worry about whether or not I'm going to feel confident in myself and my ability to do it. I know that I'm capable of doing it. And a lot of times I will tell you, my ability to execute something or do it well is really just in the time needed to put the work in and the desire to do a good job, because that's effort. And we're going to talk about preparation right away here. But I got one more thing, two more things. Sorry. I want to talk to you about mindset that I find to be really helpful to be a more calm speaker. So one of them is catastrophizing. So this is something that a lot of people do when it comes to public speaking, is you can and will catch yourself imagining scenarios that are absolutely ridiculous when it comes to public speaking. Some that are even less so, but like, I have people who come to me and they're convinced that they'll be public speaking and their boss is going to stand up in front of everyone and say, "That was terrible. You are fired." But there's other less stuff. There's other lesser things, like people will judge me, or I'm not going to get the promotion that I want, or they're not going to buy my business. And, we'll talk about judgment in a second, but one of the best ways that I have found to combat that dread that comes with public speaking is the series of questions that I found in a book called How to Be Yourself by Dr. Ellen Hendrickson, which is, you start with the question, how bad would that really be? Okay, so you pitch your business and it doesn't get picked up this time. How bad would that really be? Okay, that would suck. Like, it wouldn't feel very good, of course. But there are other opportunities, and this was a bit of a long shot anyways. Is something you tell yourself. Well, what are the odds? What are the odds that I don't get picked up? Actually, they're pretty good that I'm not going to get picked up or I'm not going to get chosen. So I maybe want to find a different marker of success that, I'm really proud of myself for putting myself out there. And how would I cope if that happened? How would I cope if my business doesn't get chosen in this competition? Well, I would probably just be kind to myself. And I would say things like, it was a really tough competition. I would look for ways to learn and get better and be grateful for the experience. And so if you can take yourself through them, you can prepare yourself for how you're going to deal with any type of disappointment that comes your way. But you can also use this for things that are way more ridiculous, which is like, when the first time I was ever on national television, I was convinced that I was going to pee my pants. Like, I was convinced that I was going to pee myself. It was absolutely ridiculous. So the question of what are the odds that I'm going to do it? Practically zero, but not completely zero, because once I did pee my pants right after I had my son, like a week later, I just peed my pants out for a walk. So I'm like, they're not zero. It's not zero. So, okay, what are the odds? How bad would it really be? Well, it would be really embarrassing if this happened and I had to walk around wet pants. But I guess, the camera only shoots me from here to here, so nobody on television is going to see it. It's just going to be everybody else in the room. And then the third question, how would I cope, is like, oh, I could change my pants. So I, a fully adult woman, brought a pair of pants, like a spare pair of pants, to this thing. And then every time my brain went, well, what if you pee your pants? I would go, I'll just change my pants. And that helped me combat my dread. So if you ever feel like the weird, crazy, or concerning thoughts you have about public speaking are too out there, just remember that I thought I was going to pee my pants. One last thing on mindset that I want to talk about is we can get really in our heads about what people are thinking about us as public speakers. And this is a really tough one, because I don't like the advice that's like, they're not ever thinking about you, or just let it go. Because the truth is, people do think about each other. They do. I do find with public speaking, it's not to the extent that you think it's going to be. People don't, the amount of time that you spend thinking about your own performance is not equal to the amount of time that other people spend thinking about your performance. The other part of it is that you actually can't know. Unless people tell you, you're never, ever, ever going to know what people truly think about you. So one of the things that I use is when I get in my head about this and I think, oh, what do people think about me? Or what do people think about my performance or how I'm speaking? Or if I say, okay, they're thinking this, they're judging me, they don't like what I'm saying, I just try to go to a neutral place, which is I don't know what they're thinking. Or, the only one who's actually for sure thinking that is me. And I find just going to neutral, to it's a mystery and I don't know, frees me up so much. If you find that you really go to the negative, they're judging me, they don't like me, they think I'm incompetent, that I would say is probably just a habit that you have of being really hard on yourself. And that's why I have that second piece that's The only person I know for sure is thinking this is me. And you know what? In this situation, I got to be a lot kinder to myself because when we talk about that working memory piece, about keeping it clear and keeping our attention focused, it is really the negative thoughts that are clogging it up more than anything else. And so being kind and supportive and doing that nourishing part of the RAIN method is so important for public speakers. I had a talk just before Christmas. I had a talk, and right before I went on, I realized, oh my goodness, I don't know how this platform works that I'm going to be presenting on. Why didn't I look it up? And then my internet also was glitching because I had made a mistake and connected to the wrong router. And so here I am, a professional who's supposed to teach people to speak, and I'm making all these mistakes. And this voice just started to tell me, like, I'm not professional. I'm not good at my job. Like, it was all this old garbage that I used to have, all these old thoughts. And then I started making more mistakes, right? Because that's all coming in, clogging up my working memory. And you know what I had to do? I had to just tell myself, like, I don't know if this is true or not. I don't know if I'm unprofessional. I don't know if I'm bad at this, but I do know that if I continue thinking these things, it's going to ruin this talk. So I'm just going to have to think about these things later. And being able to have that control over how I talk to myself freed up my mind. And I was able to do the last 40 minutes and really connect with my audience and give them some value. So just having that control is really what's going to set you apart as a public speaker, not putting your hands on your hips and making eye contact with people. Okay, let's talk a little bit about preparation, and then I want to get in about your business and how to talk about your business. So I'm going to cruise through this part because it seems like it's pretty obvious, but really preparation is so key for public speaking. When we see someone up there and we think they're just rising to the occasion, they're not. They put in a lot of effort. So increase your chances of success by putting in a lot of effort. The other thing about preparing and properly preparing is that no one can take that away from you. So when you get up there and there's all these other issues, like the tech goes wrong or you're thrown off or something bad happens to you that day that's distracting you, you still have your preparation. All that work you did inside of you is still there. There's this great book called Grit, written by Angela Duckworth, and she did a TED Talk too, which you can check out, where she talks about in her book about preparing for her TED Talk, which did go viral. It was amazing. It was a huge hit. But she said her first version of it that she did for the producers of TED Talk was horrible. Or, well, she thought it was great, but they were like, you have not done enough work on this. Like, this is like a first draft. And so what she normally would have done as a presentation, she actually had to edit it, go back, get some feedback from her colleagues, rewrite it, show it to her husband, rewrite it. And then she had to start practicing out loud and preparing and doing it in front of people, doing it in front of her kids and getting feedback so that by the time she delivered in front of the audience, it was in her body. She was connected to it and she didn't have to worry about, am I going to forget my words? She was able to just talk. And what she said about this in her book is she said, I have a talk that bore only a weak resemblance to the one I'd originally proposed. It was better, a lot better. You watch that talk and you'll see me in flow. But you search YouTube for the many rehearsals that preceded it, or for that matter, footage of anyone doing effortful, mistake-ridden, deliberate practice, and my guess is you'll come up empty. Nobody wants to show you the hours and hours of becoming. They'd rather show you the highlight of what they've become. And I always say, as they should, I don't want to see someone practice free throws. I just want to see them get that clutch shot when it really matters, right? But what we don't want to forget is how much time that player spent in their backyard as a kid perfecting that shot, because we need to put equal amounts of effort into our performance in order to make it seem really natural. If you have trouble with procrastinating, this is something that I find really helpful. So when we are procrastinating for public speaking in particular, we're not just lazy. We don't want to feel what we're going to feel when we're public speaking. We're avoiding feeling those feelings. But working on being able to speak while feeling things, while having nervousness come up for us or a little bit of embarrassment is really important that we're able to speak while we have those things. So when you practice public speaking and those things come up for you, great, because there's your opportunity to practice managing it. So what I like to tell myself is that I'm not just practicing my speech, I'm practicing feeling those feelings. You know, procrastination also, sorry, preparation is also just a gift that you give yourself, because it means that everything doesn't have to go right. There can be things that go wrong or things that throw you off, and you're going to have that base foundation to sit on. And another really cool hack, I'm super huge, like super interested in the brain, is that we can actually hack our own motivation system here. So I learned this from Andrew Huberman. You probably know him, the Huberman podcast. Is he talked about attaching dopamine to, attaching a really, really good feeling to when you are successful. So if you prepare a lot for a talk and the talk goes well, when the talk goes well, like raise your hands over your head and say to yourself, like, yes, that is because I prepared. Okay. And then the next time you think about preparing for a talk or getting ready for it, your brain's going to go, yeah, do that. Because when we prepare, it goes well. And then I get that really good feeling of success. You can do this with sports. I do this with running all the time. When I finish a race, I go, that was because of the training. The training got me here. And you bet I'm way more motivated to train because of it. Other things that we can prepare for, mistakes. So a lot of people with public speaking, they don't want to deal with something going wrong, or they want everything to go perfect. And they think that that's a great public speaker. But truly, like, you cannot be a public speaker and not have things go wrong. It's just how it works. You're going to make mistakes if you're going to speak in public. So your true professionalism and what sets great public speakers apart is not whether they make mistakes, it's how they deal with them. So when a mistake happens, your reaction is your focus, not the mistake. How am I responding to this, and how am I speaking to myself about this so that I can stay in a place where I am calm? So one of the ways that I do this is just to remind myself that they're part of the job. If I'm going to be talking, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to say the wrong word, I'm going to show the wrong slide, or something's going to happen. And so I'm just going to know that that's part of the job. So when it happens, I go, oh, it's part of the job. You know, there's a great story in the book Mindset by Carol Dweck, where she talks about a son and a dad in a shop, and the son spills the nails all over the floor. And he goes, oh, I'm so clumsy. I'm so terrible at this. I just spilled the nails everywhere. And his dad goes, that's not what we say when we spill the nails. And his son goes, well, what do we say? And the dad says, I spilled the nails. I'll pick them up. And that's exactly the attitude when you're public speaking. Oh, I did something wrong. I will now do the right thing. If I need to, I will mention it or correct myself, but I'm not going to dwell on this. Sometimes, though, things happen that are big, which do cause that emotional reaction that we talked about, where that amygdala hijacks that prefrontal cortex, where you kind of go offline and you can feel that panic rising in your body. I call that being thrown. And that's more rare, especially as you become more experienced as a public speaker, but it still can happen. So I like to also prepare for this. I like to prepare for when these things happen, because you need to be able to act without thinking. You need to be able to, because remember that prefrontal cortex is down. You need to be able to know what you're going to do. So I say create a plan. And a lot of people have something in their lives that takes them from that panic mode to calm mode. So what is it that works for you? For a lot of people, it's breathing. I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. Another great way is thought awareness. So just thinking about your thoughts brings your prefrontal cortex back online. So just saying, oh, I'm panicking. That really scared me and I wasn't expecting it. And now my thoughts are racing. And so I'm panicking a little bit. Even that will start bringing yourself back into your parasympathetic nervous system. Positive affirmations, I am safe, I'm going to be okay, are helpful. And something that I used to use when I was in radio and I would make a mistake is I would just focus on the next like 10-second shifts. Like, what do I need to do for the next 10 seconds? And I'm not going to let myself think about anything else. If anybody here is a fan of the Frozen movies, in Frozen 2, Anna has a song where she's like, just the next right thing, right? Like the next right thing, just do the next right thing. And I find that if I just look at what's right in front of me and just do that, I find that eventually I'm just calm and I'm right back in the work. And then the final piece for this is visualize yourself doing this. So visualize something going wrong and dealing with it well, because that's rehearsal and that's practice and that's part of preparing as a public speaker. I want to talk also about audiences, because this is going to be a huge part of really being authentic as a public speaker. And I have some mindset tools or ways about looking at it or preparing to work with them that is going to really help you once you get on stage, establish that connection and have a much better rapport. So the first thing that we need to know about audiences is that they want to like us. So it is a misconception that audiences are sitting back and they're judging us and they're like, I'm going to like you. I'm going to like this when you prove to me that you are smart. And I don't find that that is how people enter spaces when they have to listen to something, because they have to listen to it anyways. So they want it to be good. They want this to be a good use of their time. They're coming in primed to like you. It's their time and attention. They want to spend it well. So they're actually going, hey, I hope this is great. Think about you starting this recording, or you coming here today to listen to this. Think about that. Did you go, I hope this is terrible and I learned nothing? Nobody thinks that way. You come in going, what can I gain? What value is there going to be in this? And that is like, think of these like prime little babies. They're coming in and they just want to learn so much from you and they want you to help them and give them value. And so then it's your job to then meet that energy and come towards them. So let me help you with that part too. So we have to always remember the dynamic of public speaking, which is that when you're up in front of an audience, you are in the power position. And with your voice and with your physicality, you need to say, you're going to be okay. I'm in charge here. I know exactly what I'm talking about, and I'm going to take care of you. We don't ever ask the audience to give us permission to be there, because they do not want that responsibility. So we're going to just show them that it's okay. And if you do not feel like it's okay, it's actually your job to just fake that you are. Now, I hate this idea of like faking confidence. I don't think you have to fake confidence. I think it is, you have to be responsible for them and show them that you are okay doing it. And the way that I like to frame this is thinking about myself as like when someone comes into my home, whether I feel like it or not, I'm going to take their coat. I'm going to offer them something to drink, something to eat. I'm going to engage them in conversation. I'm going to be polite to them because this is my home and I'm responsible for them. And so it's the same thing for you. If you want the responsibility of being up in front of a crowd, then your job is to take care of your audience. Now, a question I get quite often at this point is, should you acknowledge if you are nervous? And I think this is a fantastic question. I think you can. I absolutely think you can name, like, I'm nervous or I'm sweating or this is a big deal to me, something like that. But here's like the little key that has to be turned in order for it to go well. When you talk about it, you cannot need your audience to make you feel okay about it. You need to be able to take care of yourself. So you're saying, my voice is shaking. And so, I might not be as clear as I'd like to be today. If you need anything repeated, just raise your hand and let me know, and I'll repeat it. You're just acknowledging what's going on, but you are taking care of you, and you're saying, I'm okay with being this nervous. Okay. I got one more little piece here with audiences, which is assume rapport. Okay. So there is something called confirmation bias, which is that our brains look for information that confirms that our thoughts and beliefs are true. So what you think about before you step in front of an audience is incredibly important, because if you step in front of them and you think they're judging me, they don't like me, your brain is going to look for information that that's true. But if you think I'm going to like them and they're going to like me, then your brain's going to look for information that that is true. And you're going to see people nodding. You're going to see people engaging. Your brain's going to be looking for that information, which is going to give you energy. And this can be used in front of a big crowd, a small crowd. It can be used one-on-one. I'm going to like them and they're going to like me. I also want you to think about how that changes your energy as you enter a situation, instead of like, I'm not going to come out of my shell until I know what they think about me. hi, I'm here and I'm ready to engage in this. It's a complete change. And then you're going to get even more energy as that confirmation bias works to your advantage. One of the things that you can do with audience too, that's a really great and important thing to do, is make them feel important to you and that you value them, show them that you value them. I'm going to say, don't trick them. You do value them. You're there to serve. You're there to impart your wisdom and help them get their goals, be better people. You're working together as a team here. And so when you do this, what you do is you actually unleash dopamine in their brain. And the reason for that is because there's something called salience, which is that our brains release a little bit of dopamine when something feels important to us. And I learned about this in this book called The Molecule of More. And so think about it like this, like you're in the kitchen and the TV is on and you hear, it's the news playing and you hear the name of your old high school. Like, wouldn't you perk up? Like that's the word I would use. I'd perk up. But imagine you're in the kitchen, in the living room's on, the TV's on in the living room, and you hear your own name. Like, like, oh my God, I gotta get in there. I'm on the news. That's that dopamine, like what? The motivation molecule. So hack this in your audiences by saying to yourself, like, I'm going to make sure they know. And so you can do this by like, pointing out people in your audience or talking about their experiences. If researching them, knowing what they're going to need and talking about things that they may actually be going through, because then it's going to just click in for them. All right. So speaking of that and what you're going through, I want to talk now. I'm going to completely switch directions because I've got 10 minutes left and I want to talk about talking about your business and how you do this effectively, and then how to write and memorize a speech so that you can speak like I am right now, no notes. Like you can just speak from the heart and have it be connected emotionally, and you are able to connect with your audiences. So let's start with expressing yourself well, talking about your business. Okay. So when we speak about our business, and I have helped a lot of business owners, I have helped a lot of people who pitch their businesses. The number one thing that you need to know is what problem you solve. But we cannot speak about it like I filter water. Okay. We need to know about the outcome of that. Like, what is it that you do for people? And I'm going to give you some examples here right away. What is the outcome of your business? That is the most interesting thing and the thing that leaves people, that the people are going to remember, and it's going to help them understand what you do. And then there's these other layers that are underneath it, which is for whom do you solve that problem? How do you do it? And in which way are you different from other people that also solve this problem? So let's just step through a few examples. So for myself here, what I wrote is I transform people into confident and authentic speakers. So that's the outcome of working with me, is that people come in, they're nervous, they leave, they're confident and authentic. I do this by resolving internal issues, which is what makes me different, in a group coaching program that's based on both my research and my own experience. So who I help as professionals, what I do is I transform them into confident speakers. That's the outcome. I'm different because I work on internal stuff, and the how is a group coaching program. So other examples would be, I help people live calmer and healthier lives by providing weekly meal plans with fresh and simple ingredients that you'll actually look forward to eating. So the how is the meal plans. What makes you different is that you'll actually look forward to eating it. It's people, so just anyone. And then the other part is you live calmer and healthier lives. Like think about that as the outcome. So typically you might say like, I give people meal plans. But what you're actually doing is you're making 5 o'clock so much calmer in a lot of households, and you're allowing them to live healthier lives, which is an outcome that people really, really want to have. And that is what's telling them that your service is necessary. Another example would be our revolutionary technology makes water filtration systems affordable, which ensures that all families can feel good about drinking water straight from the tap. That's the outcome. Feel good about drinking water straight from the tap. That's a visual. You can see that. what makes you different is the fact that your technology is revolutionary, which makes it affordable. And what you do or how you do it is a water filtration system. So really, like, what it comes down to is being clear on outcome. Okay. And then we build from that foundation. So those examples were the quick hit, which is the answer to, so what do you do? What do you do? I transform people into confident and authentic speakers, not I'm a public speaking coach. Okay. The elevator pitch is when you have 1 minute. So then we could take that and we can make it like a little bit longer. And then we have the full pitch, which is a chance to expand and get into the most important details. You should have all of these prepared and thought out about your business: the quick hit, the elevator pitch, and the full pitch. But the most important thing is that you never, ever, 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 ever lose the clarity of it. Then the clarity comes from that outcome. I transform people into authentic and confident speakers. Because if you do not give them a clear picture of what you do, they're not going to be able to see it and they're not going to understand. And being understood is way more important than being confident or articulate. Being understood is the most important. So clarity and knowing how you impact people and the outcome of working with you, I cannot express that enough. That is the most important thing. Another great thing to develop when you're going to be talking about your business a lot is your origin story. And I do know we're almost out of time here, so I'm just going to go through this. We will be done in 3 minutes. It's going to be amazing. So your origin story is, what do you do? Or sorry, why you do what you do. I told my origin story at the beginning of this talk, which is I used to dread public speaking. And then I said, I'm fed up. I'm not doing this anymore. That's the moment that I changed. All right. So when you tell your origin story about what like hooked you into your business, it has to include that moment you changed. Be specific, but edit a lot of but make sure you edit out details that are unimportant. We got to go right to the bones of the story. And then when you tell this, let your passion show through. Let your passion for serving and solving problems for people show through when you tell your story. I want to touch quickly on pitching because I know this is what a lot of entrepreneurs need to do. When you are pitching your business, you need to solve that person's problem. You know, when I was an actress, I used to go on an audition and people would say like, they're not judging you. They just want you to solve their problem. And I'd be like, no, that's not true at all. But then I became someone who cast plays and was a director and a playwright. And every person that walked through that door, I would hope that they were the number one person. Like I hoped they were the best actor in the world. I wanted them to solve my problem. And so when you go in to pitch your business, solve that person's problem. When they have money to give, be so undeniably good that they're like, it's just got to go to that person. And that makes it easy because they were just the best person. Like go in with that attitude. I'm here to solve this problem, which is that you need to find someone to give money to. Change the marker of success. So it's really important as well when you're pitching that you don't focus your own personal value or your business's value on whether or not this is successful. Okay. This is just a moment where you have an opportunity to gain something. But even if you don't gain by being successful, getting that money, you gain experience. You are on a success trajectory always. If you are working on your business, if you are not giving up, you are succeeding. And so it's whether or not that person wants to come in at that moment of success and work with you or not. Otherwise, you'll see them later, and that's completely fine. I also like to think of pitching as dating. Like, you know, you're just going to show them who you are. You're not going to try and guess what they want you to be. You're just going to show up and show them who you are and see if you vibe. Because the truth is that sometimes you put all this effort on wanting them to like you, and then you don't like them. So you got to be in your right state of mind so that you can have that reciprocal conversation. So you can make sure that you actually want this person to come in and be a part of your business too. I did have one more thing I want to go through, which was my speech preparation, but I'm out of time. But luckily I have a YouTube video, a private YouTube video where I teach how to prepare a speech in the way that I do it, which is a great way to write and memorize so you can speak from the heart. So I will just send that so that you can send out the recording for this, the slides for this, and then as well, you can send out the video that explains how to do a speech. I can stay a little bit longer for questions if the two people that are here live have them, but if not, people can reach me. Actually, do you mind if I just share one more slide? I just have, I'll just go through
You
here.
go for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just to connect with me. So I have my Instagram, I have lots of tips on there, my website, and then you can find me on LinkedIn as well. Yeah. Anyways, so
That's been great.
Yeah, thank you. Does anybody who's here have a question? You can pop it in the chat too. I'd be happy to answer. No, that's okay. If you can always email me, you can reach out through my website. I'm always happy to answer questions.
Wonderful.
No questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming.
That's been great. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you. Oh, I appreciate you having me. And so I'll send you all that stuff and
Yeah, sounds great.
yeah, just have anyone reach out. I'm always
I will.
available.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Kate.
Kelly. Thank
Take care.
you.
Kate.
Bye.
Bye.